Good day. In today's lecture, we're going to talk about the basic concept of criminology. So, we have here the topic, the definition of crime, etiology of criminology, and then the definition of criminology under the Republic Act 11131. Okay? For the first topic, the definition of crime, we have here the definition of crime according to Edwin Sutherland and Donald Cressy. Edwin Sutherland and Donald Cressy defines criminology as a body of knowledge that regards crime as a social phenomenon that includes within its scope the making of laws, the breaking of laws, and the reaction towards the breaking of laws. So with regards to crime or the discussion relating crime as a social phenomenon, we covered that already in our previous discussion. So if you haven't watched it yet, I'm going to leave the link on the description below. Now, as well as the scope of criminology, the study or the scope of the study criminology, that is the making of laws, the breaking of laws, and the reaction towards the breaking of laws. We discussed that already. Then also I'm going to leave the description or the link on the description below for a brief review relating to that matter. Okay? Now we have here the origin of the word criminology. Criminology originated from the two word Latin word crimen, which means offense, and the Greek word logos, which means study. So we are going to combine them together. Criminology simply means study of offense or crime. Okay? Then we have here the definition of criminology under the Republic Act 11131. Republic Act 11131 is otherwise known as the Philippine Criminology Profession Act of 2018. So basically, this is the law that governs the criminology practice here in Philippines. Now, upon the enactment of this law, it provides also a new definition to criminology. So we have here the definition of criminology according to this law. It defines criminology as a scientific study of crimes, criminals, and victims. It also deals with the prevention and solution of crimes. This definition is much more complete since the word victim is already included. Remember, on the first definition, it only focuses on the offender, the society, and of course the punishment. It leaves the victim alone. Okay? So in every crime, there is a victim. So it's very important to discuss also the victim. And under the study or under the discussion of the victim, we must try to understand also the different nature of victimization. No? What is the contribution of the victim to his own victimization? What acts is considered as risk-taking behavior for criminality, and so on. Okay? In the new definition of the term criminology, it also involves the prevention and solution of crimes. As I've stated on the previous discussion, one of the major goals of the criminology profession is to come up with solution. We are studying the existence and nature of crime for the purpose of coming up with a solution on the prevention and existence of crime. So this new definition already included that purpose or goal of the study of the criminology. The Republic Act 11131 will be discussed in a separate lecture. Okay? So that is just an overview of the definition of criminology under the new law that governs the criminology practice here in the Philippines. Okay? So next topic we have here, what is crime? So legally speaking, crime is defined as an act committed or omitted in violation of public law forbidding or commanding it. That's the definition provided by the revised Penal Code of the Philippines. It mentions there that crime can be an act of omission or commission. So there are two ways on how you are going to commit a crime by omission or commission. So what does it mean? Now when we say crime by commission, it means that there is a law that prohibits that certain act. Okay? There is a law that prohibits that certain act, and then the person commit that prohibited act, and that is an example of a crime by commission. So let's say, for example, the act of killing is prohibited by law. And Mr. Pedro killed Mr. Juan. So how are you going to classify his action based on the legal definition of crime? So that is basically can be considered as a crime by commission, since there is a law that prohibits killing and Mr. Pedro committed that prohibited act, and that is a crime by commission. Next is we have crime by omission, meaning the law mandates a certain act to be performed, yet you did not perform the act that is mandated. So let's say, for example, Mr. Juan is a business owner and he is mandated by the law to pay his taxes. Mr. Juan did not pay his taxes. So he committed or he omitted an act that is mandated by the law. He disobeyed the mandates of the law, and that would be considered as a crime basing on the legal definition of crime. Okay? And that is classified under crime by omission. Okay? So that is the definition of crime based on what the revised penal code had provided. Criminologists define crime as any act that is unacceptable to the community or an act that violates the social norm. Okay? So we have here the social definition of criminology, which states that if a person violates the social norm, his action is already considered as a crime, regardless if there is a law that prohibits that certain action. It also states that crime refers to unacceptable behavior to the society. What are those unacceptable behaviors to the society that is not actually defined as a crime? Let's say, for example, you're living in a vegan society. So in that society, they do not allow, or they are considering the act of eating meat as a taboo. So that society may label the act of eating any types of meat as a crime, though it's not actually punishable by law. But that society does not tolerate that type of behavior. So it shows that a certain society may define an act which is unacceptable as a crime. So that is how crime is defined by the society. Okay? So those are the two definitions of crime. We have the legal definition and we have the social or criminological definition. Of course, we must always look into the legal definition. However, we must not also leave behind the social definition of crime, because there is a tendency that those acts which are considered as crime socially, those unacceptable behavior, although not yet punishable by law, will become punishable someday. Okay? Let's move on to the topic: who decides what act will be considered as crime? As we have stated, the society may define what act will be considered as crime basing on the social definition. If the society believes that that behavior is unacceptable, then they will label it as a crime. Now, regarding this topic, it depends upon how or what view you are sharing with regards to crime. Some may say that the majority of the people are the one who decides the crime. So that's the society. Or the majority of the society is the one who decides the crime. While others may claim that those who are at the top of the social economic status are the one who decides the crime. We have here the consensus view of crime. These are those people who believes that it is the majority member of the society that decides what act will be considered as crime. They believe that the majority of the society will come together and decides and label what behavior will be considered as crime and what is acceptable behavior. And we have also the conflict view of crime. This is where the people are claiming that it is those who are in power economically who decides what act will be considered as crime. And those prohibitions are mainly for the purpose of protecting their own interests against those who belong to the lower class. So this is the idea of the capitalism or the communism. Okay? Then we have also the interactionist that believes that crime is defined by those who possess social power, such as community leaders, our lawmakers, our policymakers, our politicians, and so on. Those are the people who have the social power. So it is believed that it is them who actually decides what act will be considered as crime. Now, what do you think? Who decides what is crime? Okay, you may comment that below. We have here also the topic: who is the criminal? Who is the criminal? Legally, we have criminal pertains to those person who has been convicted by final judgment in any court of law of the crime charged against him beyond reasonable doubt. So basically, a person who has been accused of a crime and has been proven to be guilty of the act accused to him is a person who can be labeled as criminal. So if you are an accused, you are not yet a criminal. But if you are already pronounced guilty of the accusation against you, then that is the time that you will be labeled as a criminal. And we have also the criminological definition of a criminal. How does criminologists define criminal or define who is a criminal? So criminologists believes that every person who commits an act that is considered as crime is a criminal. So the moment a person commits a crime, he is already considered as a criminal. If we are going to compare the two definitions, legal definition of criminal is much stricter because it says as long as the person is not yet proven guilty, then he cannot be considered yet as a criminal. But criminologists define criminal as those persons who commits a crime. Regardless if he is proven guilty or not, he is already a criminal the moment he committed crime. Okay, so that's the distinction between the definition of criminal on its legal aspect and criminological aspect. Okay? Who is a victim? So who is a victim? Victim pertains to those person who has been harmed physically, emotionally, or financially of a person or by another person who had committed an act that is considered as a crime. Okay? So that is the simple definition of a victim. Victim can be classified into victim of a crime and victim of natural disasters such as, typhoon, earthquakes, and other disasters. So those can be considered also as victim. And then we have victim as defined under criminology, which pertains to those who are physically, emotionally, and financially harmed by a person or by another person who committed the crime. So under the study of criminology, it also includes the concept of victimology. It studies what is the participation of the victim towards his own victimization. Okay? So that is the basic concept of the study of criminology. Thank you and have a good day.
갑자기 내게 나타나준 너, 난 아무 말도 할 수가 없었지. 첫눈에 반한다는 이야기